Welcome to MacStories Unwind, a weekly review of everything MacStories and more. Today's show is brought to you by Hubstaff. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is my special guest and frequent special guest, I guess at this point, Mr. Alex Guillot. How you doing, Alex?
Hey, John. I'm doing great. It's been a good week.
It has been. It's been quite a week. It's Friday. I think that you and I are both a little tired from all the things we launched on the club this week, and we've talked to people a lot about this stuff by this point, and I think most people know about it. So, despite the fact that we covered it a lot on the site, we're not going to go into excruciating details. I'm going to let Alex kind of hit the highlights, then maybe say a couple things before we move on to the news, the club, and all the other stuff.
Sure thing. So at the beginning of this week, on Monday morning, we launched our brand new Club MacStories and our new App Stories websites together. And on the Club MacStories end, we brought in new subscription tiers. So our Club MacStories members can subscribe to a higher tier level for Club MacStories Plus, where they will get access to custom RSS feeds, full text search of all of our MacStories Weekly articles, just a lot of ability to explore through our existing content and dig up old things, which is super nice. And of course, access to our community Discord, which if anyone hasn't seen yet, that Discord has been super fun already. John and Federico and I have been hanging out in there all week, and it's just been a blast. We got a great community of people going in there, and if anybody else wants to join, you'll be welcome. It'll be great, and I think everyone's having a good time. And then on the App Stories side, we launched App Stories Plus, which is our new subscription version of the App Stories podcast, where John and Federico talk a little bit more. You get some more content. It comes in at a higher bit rate, and it comes in a day early, so you can listen early to each episode. And then, of course, if you subscribe to our top level Club Premier, you get both Club MacStories Plus and App Stories Plus all together. And if you're a club member and you don't want to subscribe to a higher tier, we've got good stuff for you too, because you get access to the whole new web app that we launched. You can read your MacStories Weekly articles in just a much nicer format on the web. You can also switch between light and dark mode. So we've got a lot more stuff for our club members, just in terms of improving the reading experience. And we're thankful to everyone who has subscribed, who are all of our existing club members, and we're really excited to see where we go from here.
And I absolutely want to mention that, this was a huge team effort by everybody on the MacStories team, and we're really happy with how well it went and the reception. It was a really fun week. We're all tired, but feeling good about it. And just to add, I have published my first column, which is the Macintosh desktop experience, where I went into great depth about something called the Loop Deck Live, which is an accessory for your Mac that is a control panel that you can put all sorts of automations and keyboard shortcuts and all that kind of thing, assign those to the buttons and the knobs, the dials, and it's a lot of fun. So that was the first column. Federico is coming out on the 9th of September with his first Automation Academy. Both those columns, they come out monthly, and they're going to be staggered, so they'll be every couple of weeks, there'll be something new, and they're part of the Club MacStories Plus and Club Premier membership too. All right, why don't we move on and talk a little bit about the news, and I want to talk a little bit about a story that Federico wrote, which is setting up a custom domain for iCloud email. And he tried this, and it works. It's beta. You have to go to, I think it's beta.icloud.com and set it up. And that what you need to do is you first need to already have another email address, not just owning the domain, but have an email address set up for that domain as well. And he used one that he's had lying around that he hasn't really used in a while. And he set that up, and within about, 3 or 4 hours, I think it was working, and he could see it not just on the web, but also on his iPhone. So I don't know that this is something I'm going to use. I'm not sure I really want iCloud email underlying some custom domain that I have. I don't really have a use for that personally, but it is a nice option if you want to use iCloud Mail as the engine for that domain that you have. The other thing we got this week was TestFlight, and specifically TestFlight for the Mac. Alex, what did we get there?
Yeah, so TestFlight for the Mac has been something that I kind of feel like has been missing for quite a while. It's been out on iOS for a long time, and Apple has owned it for a long time. But now it's finally coming to the Mac. which is great. And so it's a little bit of it's not quite fully formed for the initial launch, but it's a good start that they've got here. But you've got your big column of beta apps on the left, where you can install your betas, and then on the right, as you click through the betas, you can see all the details of each app that you have beta access to in the big panel on the right. And so it's missing search on the left. So if you have access to a lot of betas, then it can get pretty rough, but I'm sure they'll improve that pretty quickly here. And then the other thing special about it is that you can use it to install any iOS or iPadOS apps on your M1 Mac. So the betas for those apps, you can install them on your Mac as well. And so that, that does increase the size of the list if you've got access to iOS and iPadOS apps, but it's pretty cool that you can start testing those on the Mac too, and it all just kind of works with the new TestFlight. So I'm pretty excited to see where they go with this from here. I do think the app needs a little work on launch, but I'm sure they'll start working through that. And in the meantime, it's fantastic that the functionality is finally available to macOS developers and to macOS users.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to see. It's a beta 1, so yes, it is. It does it needs some polish, but it's coming along pretty well. And a top tip for this, which is if you get a link to a beta, you can't just open the link and have the TestFlight app open yet. You have to command drag the URL onto the TestFlight for Mac icon, and then it will install. So, it is what it is.
Top tip.
It is beta 1. That's thanks to Guy Rambo and Steve Troughton-Smith. I think Steve was the one who discovered it, but I saw Guy's tweet about it. So yeah, that's how you do it at this point. But hopefully that'll work itself out relatively quickly. On Club MacStories this week, we had our very first issue that was published simultaneously by email and on the web, which was pretty cool because people can now, who are Club MacStories Plus and Club Premier members, can get that by RSS, and everybody can read it on the web. And we had a whole series of articles here. I went into some tips and tricks for the new club website, things like how to best use it with read it later services, setting up single-purpose browsers for the club, all sorts of things there. Then I also had a column about the reasons why we built Calliope, which I'll leave it to readers to check that out. But it's something, open web standards and controlling your own technology is something that's very near and dear to our hearts at MacStories. And that was kind of the guiding light and philosophy that drove the project and the direction that Alex took it as he built it out for us. And beyond that, Federico is using QuickNote now, which is a feature coming in iOS and iPadOS 15 as kind of a templating system for his email when he has to send out common responses to people, and for Twitter, because we do things like send out promotional tweets about podcasts and things like that. So he's using that as a templating system. And then we had an interview with Raul Mata, who is the developer of Tempo. That's a workout tracking app for runners, walkers, and hikers. And this is really one of my absolute favorite apps for that. And this week it got an update with goals, that you can set goals and then satisfy your goals over multiple days. And so we had a little interview with him all about what he's looking forward to in the fall and some of the things he's been doing with Tempo over the last year. And it's worth checking out. All right, Alex. Next, of course, we had App Stories this week. And App Stories, no shock there, was all about the club too, because Federico and I went into a lot of depth about what it took to get that project off the ground, what it entails, what are the features, and all of that. There's lots of ways to learn about what we did, whether you're reading or you're watching that, or you watch the screencasts, which I put up on YouTube because MacStories has a YouTube channel. How about that? That's not something you expected to see, but it's there. So check it out. All right, Alex, I want to tell you about our sponsor, and that is Hubstaff, which is the all-in-one tracking solution for managing field and remote teams that you've always wanted. Focusing on the right priorities is critical to managing your employees. And with Hubstaff, you've got the tools you need to track productivity and power through projects. Hubstaff lets you do things like automate clocking in and clocking out with geofence time tracking for teams on the go. With Hubstaff, preparing and tracking timesheets is super simple, and invoicing is automated too. Hubstaff Time is their product that provides simple time tracking and reporting. Hubstaff Desk allows you to manage your team, proof their work, keep on top of time tracking, and boost productivity. Finally, Hubstaff Tasks allows you to break up huge projects into manageable work cycles so your team can get more done. And if you're on the go, Hubstaff Field for GPS helps you manage your field team too. All of the plans are free for solo teams and offer per-user pricing and enterprise solutions, as well as a full-featured 14-day trial. So sign up today and check it out over at hubstaff.com. Again, that URL is hubstaff.com. Our thanks to Hubstaff for their support of the show. All right, I want to talk to you, Alex, a little bit about arcade. I know that you haven't probably been playing a lot of games recently since we just launched an enormous project.
Mm-hmm.
But
had a few things going on.
I know. Have you ever played Asphalt 8?
I have not, but
it's a classic.
Tell me about it.
Well, it's a classic. Asphalt 8 is an iOS game that's been around for years and years, and it has been relaunched as one of the Apple Arcade classics. So you can check that out today. It's out today. And another one, which is Baldo, the Guardian of the Owls. Now, this is a game that has kind of that, it's got a little bit of a Zelda feel to it, and it's got a Studio Ghibli feel to it as well. It's hard to describe, and I haven't played it yet, but it looks beautiful. The artwork is just amazing, and it's from a studio in Italy, and to me, this is one of the examples of a premier app coming out on Apple Arcade, which has been something that we've seen over the last few months with other games like Fantasian. So I think this is of that caliber, from what I can tell, just looking at it from the outside.
Yeah, I watched the launch trailer for this one, and it looks fantastic. It's just some gorgeous artwork. It looks like a really exciting game to try out.
We have a little time left to go through our Unwind picks. I'm kind of wondering, do you have a pick, even though you've been busy this week, Alex?
I have a game for you, John.
Oh, good.
And it's not a new game, and it's a game that I don't know if people want to get involved with, but I'm picking League of Legends, which is it's a classic. At this point now, it's becoming a pretty classic game. It's been around for over a decade, I believe, but it's just constantly growing. I got into it last year in the middle of the pandemic, and it was a really nice distraction. This game is hard. It has a very steep learning curve. There's over 150, I think, champions that you can pick from to play, and then you play a giant 5v5 online game. And so the games can last like 20 minutes or to 40. It's pretty in-depth. It's pretty intimidating, but man, when you start playing this game, it is very rewarding. It's really fun. There's a lot going on. And I felt like, I haven't had time to play a lot of League of Legends lately, but it's one of the few games that I can just very quickly fully immerse myself in. So it was a pretty good kind of mental reset for me as we've been, amongst all of the wild stuff that we're trying to get out in recent weeks. And, every once in a while to just take a step back, go play a game of League of Legends and just, step onto Summoner's Rift, as they call it, was pretty fun. And I do highly recommend the game. But, be aware if you want to dabble in League of Legends, it might consume a lot more of your life than you're ready for, as it did for me in the pandemic last year. I got pretty into it, but now it's pretty fun to just kind of take a step back and reset from what I'm thinking about, play a game of League, and then go back to work. It's been pretty great.
Oh, that's great. I mean, I think that does seem like kind of one of the perfect pandemic type games that are out. All right, my pick is Mythic Quest Season 2, a TV Plus show, which, of course, is all about a group of game developers making a video game. And I guess the video game aspect of this really isn't super important, because ultimately this is really an office comedy, like, kind of maybe a little bit like The Office, not the same kind of humor, but that sort of situational comedy where a bunch of people from different walks of life are thrown together in an office setting and trying both to get along and to create something. And it's a funny show. I like it, and I also like the fact that during the course of the series, they have episodes where they really kind of take a hard left turn and do something very different, where they'll go back maybe to a time in one of the characters' lives from years and years before and follow that for a couple of episodes. And then it ends up tying into the overall story arc for that particular season. So that kind of mixes it up and keeps it from getting stale. I don't know. I've really enjoyed it. It's not, I wouldn't say that it's one of the top 3 shows that I've watched in the past year, but it's definitely one that when season 2 rolled around a while back, I didn't get on it immediately, but then once I started watching, I kind of binged it over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, and I just finished it up a couple of weeks ago and been saving it because I knew this was going to be a busy week and I haven't actually watched it this week, but I think it still counts because I watched the whole season and it's really good.
Nice. Yeah, this show's on my list to check out. I've heard nothing but good things about it, so I'm excited to give this one a try too. It might be a nice, post-launch relaxing thing for me to binge through.
Yeah, definitely. You should take a look at it. It's definitely worth checking out, and it's relatively short, and you can get through it without too much trouble.
Yeah, they're nice 30-minute episodes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, It's kind of nice to have a show like that where you can kind of, consume an episode pretty quick and get back to whatever you're doing.
Yeah, and I just find it easier to knock off 2 or 3 in a row, whereas if you're doing hour-long episodes, 2 is kind of quite a bit sometimes if you're tired. Yeah. So this is kind of a nice way to approach a show too. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us for this week. It's been quite a week. Everybody at the MacStories team is really excited, and thanks for checking out all we did this week with both the club and with App Stories Plus. You can check out the club at plus.club or App Stories Plus at appstories.plus. We have special URLs for both. You can find me over on Twitter and Instagram. I'm at John Voorhees on both. That's JOHNVOORHWS. And where can people find you, Alex?
You can find me on Instagram at AJGUYOT and on Twitter at _AlexGio. That's _ALEXGUYOT.
All right. Thanks for joining me, Alex. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good, John.